The 21st century has witnessed the rise of a new breed of leader. These figures, Donald Trump, Narendra Modi, Vladimir Putin, and Benjamin Netanyahu, have captured global attention with their assertive styles and nationalist agendas. While geographically and ideologically diverse, they share common traits: a penchant for authoritarianism, a disregard for dissent, and a willingness to exploit societal divisions for personal gain. This essay will examine the policies and actions of these leaders, exploring how their pursuit of power has impacted democracy, global stability, and the lives of millions. From the halls of Washington to the streets of Moscow, from the bustling cities of India to the contested lands of the Middle East, their decisions have reverberated across the globe. Their brand of politics, often characterized by populism and a disdain for traditional norms, has eroded democratic institutions and fueled societal polarization. The consequences of their actions are far-reaching, impacting everything from climate change to international relations to the very fabric of social cohesion. This examination is not simply an academic exercise, it is a call to action. By understanding the dangers posed by this new wave of authoritarianism, citizens around the world can be empowered to resist its allure and defend the values of democracy, tolerance, and human rights. The future of our interconnected world may very well depend on it. Donald Trump's presidency marked a watershed moment in American history, one defined by a stark departure from democratic norms and a relentless assault on truth itself. From the outset, Trump's administration was characterized by chaos, division, and a blatant disregard for facts and evidence. His America First agenda, far from promoting national unity, served to stoke fear and resentment, pitting Americans against each other along racial, religious, and ideological lines. One of the most alarming aspects of Trump's presidency was his blatant disregard for climate change. Despite overwhelming scientific consensus, Trump withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement, rolled back environmental regulations, and promoted fossil fuels. His denial of climate science not only undermined global efforts to combat this existential threat, but also jeopardized the health and well-being of future generations. Trump's immigration policies were equally draconian, marked by a cruelty and disregard for human dignity that shocked the conscience of the world. His administration implemented a zero-tolerance policy at the southern border, resulting in the separation of thousands of migrant children from their parents. The images of children held in cages sparked outrage both domestically and internationally, exposing the moral bankruptcy at the heart of Trump's agenda. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare the profound failures of Trump's leadership. His administration's response to the crisis was characterized by denial, misinformation, and a lack of empathy for the suffering of millions. Trump downplayed the severity of the virus, promoted unproven treatments, and undermined public health experts. His actions exacerbated the spread of the virus, resulting in hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths and plunging the nation into economic turmoil. Trump's presidency left an indelible mark on American democracy. His attacks on the free press, his attempts to undermine the legitimacy of elections, and his willingness to exploit racial and social divisions have eroded trust in institutions and deepened political polarization. The consequences of his toxic legacy will continue to be felt for years to come. Narendra Modi's rise to power in India has been accompanied by a troubling shift towards Hindu nationalism. Since assuming office in 2014, Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, have pursued an agenda that seeks to redefine India's identity as a Hindu nation, sidelining the country's long tradition of secularism and pluralism. This has resulted in growing anxieties among India's minority populations, particularly Muslims, who have faced increased discrimination and violence. Central to Modi's ideology is the concept of Hindutva, a political ideology that seeks to create a homogeneous Hindu identity within India. Under Modi, the BJP has promoted this ideology through a number of controversial policies, including the revocation of Article 370, which granted special status to the Muslim-majority state of Jammu and Kashmir. This move, widely condemned as an assault on Kashmir's autonomy, has further fueled tensions in the region and raised concerns about the erosion of minority rights. Modi's economic policies, often touted as a success story, have also come under scrutiny for exacerbating inequality and failing to address the needs of India's vast, poor and marginalized populations. While his government has implemented some market-oriented reforms, critics argue that these policies have primarily benefited wealthy elites and corporations, leaving behind the vast majority of Indians struggling to make ends meet. The Modi government has also been criticized for its crackdown on dissent and its attempts to stifle freedom of the press. Journalists, activists, and opposition leaders critical of the government have faced intimidation, harassment, and even arrest. This shrinking space for dissent has raised concerns about the future of democracy in India and the Modi government's commitment to upholding fundamental freedoms. Modi's India presents a complex and concerning picture. While he enjoys considerable popularity among a segment of the population, his policies have raised serious concerns about the direction of the world's largest democracy. The rise of Hindu nationalism, the erosion of minority rights, and the crackdown on dissent are all worrying trends that threaten the very fabric of India's diverse and pluralistic society. Vladimir Putin's rule in Russia has been marked by a steady erosion of democratic norms, a consolidation of power, and a resurgence of Russian nationalism. Since assuming the presidency in 2000, Putin has systematically dismantled checks and balances, silenced dissent, and projected an image of Russia as a resurgent global power. His actions have had profound consequences not only for Russia, but also for the broader international order. One of the most defining features of Putin's rule has been his crackdown on political opposition and dissent. Independent media outlets have been shuttered, journalists have been harassed and imprisoned, and opposition figures have been silenced, exiled, or met with suspicious deaths. This systematic suppression of dissent has created a climate of fear and intimidation, effectively eliminating any meaningful challenge to Putin's authority. Putin's foreign policy has been characterized by a similar assertiveness, seeking to reassert Russia's influence on the world stage. The 2014 annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine demonstrated Putin's willingness to use military force to achieve his strategic objectives. These actions sent shockwaves through the international community, shattering the post-Cold War security architecture in Europe. Beyond Ukraine, Putin has sought to expand Russia's influence through a variety of means, including military interventions in Syria, support for authoritarian regimes, and interference in foreign elections. His actions have contributed to a more unstable and unpredictable global order, raising tensions with the West and undermining international norms. Putin's Russia represents a significant challenge to the liberal international order. His authoritarian tendencies, his willingness to use force, and his disdain for democratic norms have made him a polarizing figure on the world stage. As Putin continues to consolidate his grip on power, the future of Russia and its role in the world remain uncertain. Section 5. Netanyahu's Israel, a rightward shift. Benjamin Netanyahu's lengthy tenure as Prime Minister of Israel has witnessed a significant rightward shift in Israeli politics. His policies, particularly towards the Palestinians, have been marked by an expansion of settlements, a hardening of positions, and a growing sense of pessimism about the prospects for peace. This rightward drift has had profound consequences for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, fueling tensions and diminishing hopes for a two-state solution. One of the most contentious aspects of Netanyahu's leadership has been his unwavering support for the expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. These settlements, considered illegal under international law, have continued to grow under Netanyahu's watch, further fragmenting the Palestinian territories and complicating any future peace agreement. The expansion of settlements is widely seen as an obstacle to peace, entrenching Israel's control over the West Bank and undermining the viability of a future Palestinian state. Netanyahu's government has also taken steps to weaken the judiciary and limit the power of the Supreme Court. These moves, seen by critics as an attempt to undermine the rule of law and consolidate power, have sparked widespread protests and raised concerns about the future of Israeli democracy. The judicial overhaul has been particularly controversial, with opponents arguing that it will erode the independence of the judiciary and give the government unchecked power. Furthermore, Netanyahu's policies have been criticized for marginalizing and discriminating against minority groups within Israel, particularly Arab citizens. Discriminatory legislation, inequalities in resource allocation, and rhetoric that demonizes Arab Israelis have all contributed to a climate of fear and alienation. This marginalization of minorities has further divided Israeli society and fueled tensions within the country. Netanyahu's Israel presents a complex and challenging picture. His policies have deepened divisions both within Israel and between Israelis and Palestinians, making a peaceful resolution to the conflict seem increasingly distant. The rightward shift in Israeli politics, the expansion of settlements, and the marginalization of minorities all pose significant challenges to the future of Israel as a democratic and just society. Section 6. The Global Impact: Eroding Norms, Rising Tensions. The policies and actions of leaders like Trump, Modi, Putin, and Netanyahu have had a profound impact on the global stage, contributing to an erosion of democratic norms, a rise in nationalism, and increased geopolitical instability. Their disregard for international law, their willingness to exploit societal divisions, and their pursuit of narrow self-interest have undermined the rules-based international order that has governed global affairs for decades. The rise of populism and nationalism, fueled in part by these leaders' rhetoric and policies, has led to a resurgence of xenophobia, intolerance, and protectionism. This has manifested in a backlash against globalization, a rise in anti-immigrant sentiment, and a questioning of the value of multilateral institutions. The erosion of trust in traditional institutions and the rise of identity politics have created fertile ground for division and polarization, both within and between nations. The pursuit of narrow national interests, often at the expense of international cooperation, has also contributed to a more unstable and unpredictable global order. The weakening of multilateral institutions, the rise of great power competition, and the proliferation of regional conflicts have created a more dangerous and uncertain world. The lack of global leadership and the absence of a shared vision for the future have left the world grappling with complex challenges, from climate change to pandemics to nuclear proliferation. The consequences of these trends are far-reaching. The erosion of democratic norms and the rise of authoritarianism threaten the fundamental freedoms and human rights that underpin a just and equitable world. The breakdown of international cooperation and the rise of nationalism make it more difficult to address pressing global challenges, jeopardizing the well-being of present and future generations. Section 7. The Psychology of Power, Narcissism, Charisma, and Fear. To understand the appeal and the danger of leaders like Trump, Modi, Putin, and Netanyahu, it is crucial to examine the psychological underpinnings of their power. These leaders share certain personality traits, often amplified by their positions of authority, that contribute to their appeal, but also make them prone to authoritarian tendencies and abuses of power. Narcissism, a personality trait characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy, is a common thread among these leaders. Their grandiose visions, their constant need for praise, and their inability to acknowledge criticism are all hallmarks of this trait. This narcissism makes them particularly susceptible to flattery and manipulation, as they surround themselves with yes-men who reinforce their distorted view of reality. Charisma is another key ingredient in their success. These leaders are often skilled orators, able to connect with their supporters on an emotional level and inspire a sense of hope or fear. They present themselves as strong, decisive figures who can protect their followers from perceived threats, whether they be economic hardship, cultural change, or external enemies. This charisma, however, can be used to manipulate and exploit, as they appeal to people's fears and prejudices to advance their own agendas. Fear is a powerful motivator, and these leaders are adept at using it to consolidate their power. They create an atmosphere of fear and distrust, portraying themselves as the only ones who can protect their followers from real or imagined enemies. Dissent is silenced, opponents are demonized, and the media is controlled to limit access to alternative viewpoints. This climate of fear makes it difficult for people to speak out and resist, allowing these leaders to tighten their grip on power. Understanding these psychological factors is crucial for recognizing the warning signs of authoritarianism and for developing strategies to counter it. By recognizing the appeal of narcissism, charisma, and fear, we can be more discerning consumers of information, more critical of our leaders, and more willing to speak out against injustice. Section 8. A call to action defending democracy in the 21st century. The rise of authoritarianism around the world is a clarion call for action. Citizens in every country have a responsibility to defend democratic values, to hold their leaders accountable, and to resist the allure of demagoguery and division. The future of democracy, and indeed of a just and peaceful world, depends on the active engagement of informed and engaged citizens. Education is the bedrock of any democracy. Citizens must be equipped with the critical thinking skills to discern fact from fiction, to recognize propaganda and misinformation, and to evaluate the claims of those in power. A robust and independent media is essential for providing accurate information and holding leaders accountable. Supporting investigative journalism, promoting media literacy, and challenging misinformation are all crucial steps in combating the spread of propaganda and disinformation. Civic engagement is essential for holding leaders accountable and ensuring that government serves the needs of the people. Voting in elections, contacting elected officials, participating in peaceful protests, and supporting civil society organizations are all vital forms of civic engagement. By making their voices heard, citizens can demand transparency, accountability, and responsiveness from their leaders. International cooperation is essential for addressing transnational challenges and defending democratic values on a global scale. Supporting multilateral institutions, promoting diplomacy and dialogue, and advocating for human rights are all crucial aspects of international cooperation. By working together, nations can build a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world. The defense of democracy requires constant vigilance and active participation. It is not a spectator sport. It is a responsibility that falls on each and every one of us. By embracing our roles as informed and engaged citizens, we can help to build a world where democracy thrives, where human rights are respected, and where all people have the opportunity to reach their full potential. Section 9. The future of leadership, embracing empathy and global citizenship. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, it is clear that a new model of leadership is needed, one that prioritizes empathy, collaboration, and a commitment to the global common good. The challenges we face, from climate change to pandemics to economic inequality, require leaders who can transcend national boundaries, bridge divides, and inspire collective action. Empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, is essential for effective leadership in an interconnected world. Leaders who can see the world through the eyes of others, who can understand the perspectives of those different from themselves, are better equipped to build bridges, resolve conflicts, and create a more just and equitable world. Collaboration, the ability to work effectively with others towards a common goal, is crucial for addressing complex global challenges. The interconnected nature of our world demands that leaders move beyond zero-sum thinking and embrace win-win solutions. This requires a willingness to listen, to compromise, and to find common ground even amidst differences. Global citizenship, the recognition that we are all interconnected and share a responsibility for the future of our planet, is essential for creating a more sustainable and just world. Leaders who embrace global citizenship understand that the well-being of their own citizens is inextricably linked to the well-being of people around the world. They prioritize international cooperation, sustainable development, and the peaceful resolution of conflict. The future of leadership lies in embracing these qualities: empathy, collaboration, and global citizenship. By cultivating these qualities in ourselves and demanding them from our leaders, we can create a world that is more just, more peaceful, and more sustainable for all. The challenges are great, but so too is our capacity for hope, for innovation, and for collective action. The time for a new era of leadership is now.